as has been said over these last days, when those three levels of life, existence, mind unite, we find ourselves in a state oftentimes called Satori, but translated it means living in a state of perpetual presence and awareness. But in that state, we're like astronauts that have traveled into outer space. The laws of life as we knew them are no longer relevant. Our relationship with life fundamentally changes. So our mind and our body have to adapt, just like the astronaut. So how do we come to know the subtle laws that are now operating in our life? This is a story about the great Maggid, who is the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic Judaism. When he was alive, it was said that he would call his Tzaddikim to him on the Sabbath day, and they would spend their time in prayer. Now, after the prayer time was over, there was cake and schnapps served in the next room. And because the time that the great Maggid spent in prayer was oftentimes greatly longer than that of his Tzaddikim, they would wait politely until he'd finished his praying before they went to have their refreshments. But oftentimes they would be sitting for some long hours with the smell of the sweetmeats in their nostrils and their stomachs grumbling. So one day amongst them they discussed what could be done, and someone said, well, you know, the Maggid is always so deeply in prayer, he wouldn't notice if we left. And of course there were those who said, oh, this would be very disrespectful. But one day, when after several hours in deep davening, as it's called, and the great Maggid was still swaying and rocking, deeply in prayer, the head Tzaddik turned to the others and almost imperceptibly whispered, the Baal Shem Tov is so deeply engrossed in prayer, he won't notice if we leave and come back for our refreshment. Just at that moment, the great Maggid came out of his prayer and he said, what's happening? Where are you going? And the head Tzaddik said, but we were so quiet. How did you know? And the great Maggid said, when we pray, a ladder is formed between earth and heaven, which I ascend. It is you who hold the ladder, and when you spoke, I fell. From your experience with life now, putting yourself in the place of the great Maggid, what does this story tell us about our new relationship with life. What is your experience now in the presence of one or the presence of many, in a social situation, around the coffee table, around the household table? In that state of perpetual presence and awareness, which is stillness. Not always silence, because we interact, but the silence is still there in the stillness. How does this story relate to your experience now with life?
It's ladder shook because everything's interrelated, and the fact that the statics were going to move was felt by him.
Yes. Yes.
Thoughts and intentions have become a lot more tangible.
Yes. 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 But like the other phenomena related to these subtle laws or arcane laws, they're clearly observable. So when they come to our awareness, we can begin to see them at work. So be aware in your social situations, around the coffee table, around your household table. The new dynamic that's occurring as a result of this state of Satori. And what happens for us? Can only speak personally, but in any situation, when you're with one person or a number of people, that in fact, because of the intensity of the interaction, it is like a ladder that's being formed, because we find ourselves more and more intensely in an elevated state of awareness. Would you agree with me? Automatically, not bidden, you're not transmitting as perhaps we would have done before, but the sheer intensity of your attention and focus on that person or on the conversation automatically lifts us up into, it's like a ladder. Wouldn't you agree? That you find yourself with more intense awareness. How different is that from before, when we were out there, perhaps giving out or beaming light, or and we know from that as that expands, so too does the energetic field in which you find yourself. So we can very clearly see the laws that are functioning. So be aware now in your social situation or in your personal relationship and see what it is that occurs. It's observable. We experience it in ourselves and we can observe it in the reaction of others. Thank you, thank you.